Hey everybody, it's Angela with Ghost Hunting Beauties, and today's topic is attachments. You asked for it, we brought it. Where are they? What are they? And we're going to get into details, so let's get started. All right, so we're going to introduce the ladies, the always beautiful, lovely, smart, intelligent SPI, Spring Paranormal Investigations. We've got Amy. We've got Lynette, and we've got Michelle today. Yay! We've got everybody here. And if you're watching and not listening, you can see we have a cat here that's also guest hosting. All right, so let's get to it. So attachments. Everybody online has been asking all about attachments. They're like, just talk about attachments. So for people who don't even know what attachments are, we'll start with you guys. What are attachments?
So, technically speaking, the way we look at it most of the time is a regular haunting. You have spirits or whatever the case may be haunting a structure or haunting the land in that area. Attachments typically are more haunting of a person. The person may go to work and feel like that spirit is still around them. They may be in their car at a restaurant and feel like that spirit is around. Whereas if you typically have just a haunting, it's just in your home or wherever it is that you're experiencing the haunting itself.
So the attachment follows you. It's
Right.
something that's where you go. It's literally, so hence the word attachment. It's
Right.
attached to you. Do you ladies have any experience with attachments?
For sure.
So we were talking about this earlier when we were just conversing about ones that were following you to your home. So tell me a little bit more about that.
I think we've all experienced with cases. We'll have spirits follow us home, and it's just to I think check us out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they always go back to their home, the house.
They don't stay.
They don't
Right.
stay. The one case that Michelle was talking about earlier, we had a spirit that came to my apartment, and I mean, she followed me to work.
Oh my
she
God.
stayed at me the entire day at work, and I'm like, what does this lady want? I was a little newer with
Maybe
things.
a paycheck? She's following you to work.
She went out to dinner with me afterwards with my friends, and then we were just talking about it. Then I got home, and I would fall into channeling her because I wasn't that great at kind of controlling it.
At blocking,
And
yeah.
you don't want to channel if you're by yourself because it's kind of scary because you're you, but you're kind of not you.
Oh, wow.
And you're alone.
Mhm.
I depend on the ladies. We depend on each other. If we're out somewhere, they'll look and something's off. But you're by yourself. You're just like, well. So, and she stuck with me. I can't even remember. She eventually went back, but it was crazy.
Where did she come from? How did she attach to you?
We went to a haunted house.
There you go.
And she was one of the spirits there, long story short.
Wow.
And I guess she was keeping an eye on us of sorts.
Maybe.
Right?
Keeping tabs.
Right. It was maybe slightly, what would you say, intimidation? Was that involved in it
There
too?
was intimidation involved in that
Oh,
one,
wow.
definitely. And spying.
But
Spy-
now,
oh, they can spy on you?
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man. This makes me a little uncomfortable in the shower.
Well, for us, it's more, with the case. They
Yeah.
might be trying to see what we're talking about,
Yep.
what we're doing, so they can bring information back to another spirit. Maybe
Oh,
somebody
man.
who's
sounds
running the show.
crazy, right?
So they're co-conspirators.
Yeah.
Ghost
These are like
co-conspirators.
ghost soap operas. They really are sometimes. It's kind
So
of weird.
Young, instead of young and the restless, old and the haunted.
Right.
Exactly.
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 That's pretty cool.
That case definitely was a soap opera of its own.
It
Oh,
really
yeah.
was for everybody.
Oh man, I'm telling you that's what one of my biggest fears whenever I was getting started with this had to do with attachments because I didn't know what they were. I just heard about them. Like what my view was is I thought attachments were just to objects. So before I knew they could attach to people, I thought they could only attach to objects. So I was always hesitant to buy things from the antique shops and all of that. So can they attach to objects?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And you do have to be careful with that. There are certain items, typically things that people get really emotional over. When you see wedding dresses in an antique shop
that makes sense.
or funeral garb. Things that had strong emotions, maybe a certain set of like religious books or like the hairbrush sets and stuff that you see with the mirrors and things like that. Mirrors are tricky. Anyway, we've kind of talked about that before with other things. So there's certain objects that, maybe evoked a strong emotion from a person and they kind of stay with it.
Could that be due to DNA, you think? Because when you wear something, especially they say on your wedding day, you're sweating, you're nervous, because especially, or maybe hot outside. But could that, same with the hairbrushes, could it be with DNA, you think?
It's possible.
Well, like jewelry, for example, that if you ever do psychometry, you take someone's personal belongings, and jewelry works really well because it has a lot of energy, and somehow you can also or get memories off of it. It's crazy. You've probably done psychometry, right? Definitely. You can get a lot from holding someone a piece of jewelry or an item that was somebody's.
Right.
Information, energy, all that. So
I think, walking in the antique shops, you feel the energy.
Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah. And I do want to put out there, too, just to separate it for anybody watching. People talk about spirits attaching to furniture, objects, and then you have the whole demonics attaching to objects, and that's a whole different thing. That's a conduit versus an attachment, which really needs separation.
Good distinction.
Definitely. Well, so tell me more about that. The main difference between those two. Like, how would you know that it's a spirit attached to it or a demonic attachment?
That's going to take a professional determination. That's just knowing what's going on in the haunting, and since that object has been brought into that place. So there's a lot of specifics, just like any other demonic case, that go into that.
Right.
The thing with that is demonics do not attach to objects.
Interesting.
They can follow an object.
Oh, wow.
But they will follow that object with the eventual point of trying to attach to a person.
Ooh.
So it's just a tool that they're using to get where they want to go so that they can do what they want to do.
Interesting.
So very different than, like a spirit of a lost loved one who's attached to a rocking chair her husband made her or something. Whole different thing.
I can see that.
But that can get confusing for people because if they can both attach to objects, how do you make the distinction?
Right. So that brings me to one of the things we've been talking about a lot lately, and you've seen in all the movies, of course. Hollywood has their own version of attachment. So where does Hollywood get it right and where does Hollywood get it wrong? Because I know you guys have seen more horror films than me. You are way braver than I am. So we'll start with you. Where do you think they get it right and where do you think they get it wrong, Michelle?
The timing with a lot of these, with they make it seem like it happens over a very quick period of time. I was fine, and all of a sudden, my house is haunted, and now I have a demon. That stuff actually can take years.
Oh, wow. Years?
Years. Because there's different stages. They're trying to oppress the people, and it's the infestation and the oppression. And that can take years depending on whose house they're in, how hard you are to, beat down and break down. So that can take a very long time. In these horror movies, it's always real quick.
2 seconds. 2 seconds.
I walked in there and all of a sudden I'm possessed. But that's not.
Well, they got 2 hours to do the whole story.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
The condensed version.
Yes. So I think the timing of these things a lot, they get it wrong. I mean, they do have to contend it for the movies and stuff, but they always make it seem like it's a new problem, and it's like, no, if it's for real, you've probably been dealing with this for years at this point before you're screaming for help, So I think that's one big thing.
Right. That makes sense. So what do you think?
Probably just like the over the top, like everything is, nothing is subtle. There's not like like you said, a grandma attached to a rocking chair. It's always something horrible. And it's always exaggerated. You know what I mean? It's not always like that. It can be like that, but I would say that's probably more the exception. It's going to usually be something more subtle, but that doesn't really make for good movies or good television or anything. So they go over the top. They've got like the essence of it, but then they boom.
Right. They put it kind of in your face. I feel like, just from me personally, that, when I've had experience with you guys, we've had an incredible journey. Like, I've had a lot more respect, and I'm, there's things to be feared. But even with, I was afraid of attachments and different things, but just going into this, that after seeing the Hollywood versions, they make everything sound like it's so terrifying.
Right, exactly.
And to me,
bad.
yeah. And to me, when I've worked with you guys, I learned to go in with respect and with learning that this is somebody's grandmother or great grandmother, or this is somebody that lived and is non-living, and they may even be confused at the situation. And instead of just if they're trying to do things where they move objects, that maybe they're just trying to get your attention versus harming you. Not that there's other things that couldn't harm you, because luckily we haven't come across that yet in this experience, but I've had the sense, even like when we're in the jail, that there might be something that could, if you go in there not with experts, or if you go in there looking for a fight, that's one thing I've seen. So with these attachments, what do you find that's most commonly attached to? Like, what do spirits, like maybe a most common object?
Dolls. I know Lynette loves the dolls.
Right, dolls.
Creepy dolls.
Like creepy
She
dolls.
likes the dolls. I don't like the dolls.
For
Thank you.
some reason, dolls. I forgot about that, and I've got a whole room full of them.
Right. Do you feel like whenever you're picking up the doll, do you sense it?
Okay, so I started just buying them. Anytime I would go on a trip, I'm like, was at this haunted antique store
Oh man.
in Jefferson, and I'm like, I'm gonna take a piece of that home with me. And she just seemed like she had her own personality. I'm not going to bring anything home, though, that feels, once you kind of know, if something feels a little off or a little heavy, I'm not going to bring that home, You're
a brave soul.
But so I've even, I don't recommend this. I've even gone on and bought a couple haunted dolls just because I like the way they look, and they get home and I'm like, there's nothing. But I have to like how they look, and I have to have like a connection, and they have to fit my decor. But I haven't had anything happen. And my cat, who is scared of spirits, she loves the creepy doll room. So I don't think I've got any negative attachments to any of those creepy dolls.
Oh man.
One thing Lynette and I differ over very much is she likes to collect those like antique pictures of people.
I do.
Like the
Really?
real pictures of people.
They're actual pictures.
Yes.
Like, so you've got like catalogs of other families in your house.
We went somewhere and somebody's like,
Wow.
oh, you think that's bad? People buy all these antique pictures and tell people that come into their house that these are their family members.
What? Oh.
I'm like, I'd haunt them just because that's an untruth. I've got a couple of them.
You just go, I just feel like it. It's like, it's just random.
And a picture, you can feel like you can connect to the person if you look at the picture, and you really can.
Too much.
Yeah. So I feel that out too. I'm like, okay, I can bring you into my house. It's safe.
Oh man.
You do you.
You are a brave soul. Crazy or brave or both, because I cannot do it. Like, I've wanted to, but then I'm like, nope, I don't want to open that.
I get safe things like lamps and little tables. Like, what are the odds that somebody is like hanging out in death because they want to be near that table?
True.
I
See,
really
there
like
you
that
go.
table.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about the stuff I buy.
Like, the table
she's
is
a
good.
lot more dangerous with that.
I guess I never really thought about it. But that's what I gravitate towards, guilty as charged. So.
Aw.
But
I think Michelle's safer too. She likes dishes.
So yours is attached dishes. Attachments in your dishes. So as you're cooking, you're like, you suddenly get an idea for a recipe.
Right.
How does it work? That's pretty cool. All right. So now you were starting to talk about the difference with the attachments and the ones that are demonic following objects. So now if somebody suspects something like that it's something demonic following an object, what would be a different telltale sign that it's not just grandma that's coming to visit, that it's something that they need to call you guys for because it's something that's bad?
Fairly early on, they'll get a feeling as to, hey, this thing is here and it's haunting me, but I'm not really scared of it.
Right.
It's not really bad, or it's not really hurting anything, versus there are other people who have a haunting that right away get that feeling of
dread.
I'm terrified. It's like this thing doesn't want me here. It's a very different feeling when it's negative versus when it's not something overly negative.
Yeah.
So that's always the kind of the first little telltale thing. And like she said, it starts slow.
Yeah.
It's not like the movies where, immediately you brought this thing in and 10 minutes later your pictures are falling off the wall.
Oh, man.
It's not like
Wouldn't that
that.
be something?
It's a slow, steady build over
Yeah.
time. And that's where people get confused, because in that early phase, it's very hard to differentiate a demonic
right?
from a regular haunting.
I wouldn't know. I'd be like, oh, it's Fred the Friendly Ghost.
Over time, those signs become more and more apparent. That dread gets deeper and deeper. Things get more and more physical. Spirits typically, and this is all in theory, so it's, and I've seen variation in this. I know they have too. But spirits can lift or move like light objects.
Okay.
Little light things might move around. Maybe something's over here on the counter and then it appears over there on the
So
counter.
like rolling a pin or something.
Right.
Okay.
Or, picking up a light set of keys or little things like that.
Jewelry.
If your
Can they
couch
toss
goes
something?
flying
Oh.
across the room,
No,
that's probably
wow.
not a human.
Yeah.
That's something else.
Something
So-
otherworldly.
But again,
Yeah.
that's not typically something that's going to happen right away.
Right.
There's going to be a build-up.
Although
over
we
time.
did have that case with that spirit that turned that large screen
The
TV. And he
Really?
he was a human spirit.
But they're so light now. Those screens are so light now.
That's a good
that
point.
that was complicated. He was kind of human, but that case involved occult stuff and witchcraft.
Oh.
And that changes
That's true.
that narrative a little bit. So he wasn't quite your everyday Uncle Bob hanging out in the
Right.
living room. You know,
Exactly.
Good old Uncle Bob.
Good old Uncle Bob.
Dang it,
We love Uncle Bob.
Stop it.
Uncle Bob just moving the pins around. He's helping you find your cell phone. That's what I need. I need a ghost in my house that just helps me find my phone. That's it. That's their only purpose, because I if I sit my phone down, it's lost forever.
Right.
That's what I need. If my couch goes flying, I'm like, you owe me a couch. That's why I always figure with ghosts and with spirits and stuff, I'm like, man, even as we've been filming, we've had cameras damaged, like so many things off screen. You guys have seen it because you've been there, but off screen, how many things happen? That's one thing that I wonder about that's a little off topic, but still on the ghostly topic is, I wonder, why do spirits not like to be filmed? Because we have so many ghost shows out there, and we have so many people that, they're having to film for weeks at a time to catch something, which you guys know that how long you have to work a case to even get something. It's not always, like you said, you come in and the paintings are flying.
Mm-hmm.
But with the spirits, I just wonder, why. I wonder why they don't want to be filmed. Is there any theory that you guys might have? Because I'm just wondering. They hate the cameras, and when the cameras are off, no one believes you, and then your stuff starts going around. It's like, oh.
I mean, we have caught some things on film.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's always necessarily that they are avoiding being filmed. It
Mm-hmm.
could just be the timing of it, when they've got the right amount of energy that
Okay.
they're able to. The situation has to kind of all come together so that it can happen. And it's a less common thing to have happen. So anytime that we catch it on film, we're thrilled that we
Right.
caught it at all.
That's
So
awesome.
in my opinion, it's not always that it's like that their decision that, ooh, we want to get so-and-so in trouble because we're not going to do it when he's got the cameras on. I don't
Right.
think it's always that.
I think too that's a really personal choice for them, like who they actually choose to show
okay.
themselves.
That makes
to.
a lot of sense.
Right. That's a good point.
And I think some of them, maybe they're not choosing, or they don't want everybody in the room to see that. Maybe they're
Right.
reserving that
a
for
good point.
special occasions or certain people.
Right, because to me, all of us for years have been trying to capture evidence and trying to get, and no matter what you capture, you could have a crowd of 100 people there, and they'll say it's fake or it's not
Right.
real. But you guys, with your experience, and even me just starting the show, my perception has changed just from filming at the show. Going, okay, once I saw a battery pack at the Hotel Icon fly off the ottoman, because I was in a mood. I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning. We were all there so tired, and my feet are kind of propped up, and then I put them down, and then he comes and puts the battery pack down because he's filming, and we've got people working on stuff, and then he goes upstairs to film, and we're downstairs. And then I was like, this is when I got choked. So that was, I wish we could have got that on film. But at the same time, like you said, it's subtle. It's not something you see on TV where I'm suddenly going, we're not having that.
Yeah.
It was gradual. I felt it pressing and pressing. And then Next thing you know, I felt like I wasn't there anymore until Amy's going, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm here." That's why, when we mentioned about working in teams, like I couldn't imagine doing this kind of stuff without a team, especially with inexperience. That's why it's good that we've got the inexperienced girls with the experienced girls leading the way, because there's going to be missteps. I mean, we want people to see that too, because they want to see us make mistakes so they know what not to do, especially, or what you should do, especially if you get in that situation. Because that is one of my fears, is people talk about the attachments, is that I didn't know. Now, when that spirit was pressing against me, was that something trying to attach, do you think?
I wouldn't guess that based on being there and how it happened. I don't think that guy was particularly very friendly.
Right.
So I think that may have just been him kind of having a tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
That's a possibility.
Definitely.
Yeah, sometimes though it's not what it seems. We've had cases where, maybe somebody had chest pain,
mm-hmm.
or somebody had like a splitting headache all of a sudden.
Right.
And or like I think Michelle had described in a previous interview that she had a situation where she felt like she was drowning and she couldn't breathe.
Right.
The spirits sometimes will pick somebody, especially if that person has abilities, and kind of give them a feeling. You might have chest pain because they had a heart attack and died, and they're trying to communicate to you what they felt.
Interesting.
So that can come off, especially if you don't know what that is,
Right.
oh my God, this thing is attacking me and hurting me.
Right.
And that might not be the case. It may be being misconstrued because they're actually trying to share something deep with you.
Interesting. So rather than attaching, they're sharing with you. See, so that makes a lot of sense too. Because it, like I said, at the time when I was feeling like I was being choked and then I was just kind of gone. And then whenever I saw the thing fly off the ottoman, like that changed a lot for me. I've always been a believer and had experiences. But when you all get together and you all start to become experienced and you're more open and a little bit more receptive to, okay, I'm here. Because, I mean, everybody can kind of tell when you go into a room, the one guy you don't want to talk to, he's got his arms crossed. He's not happy. He's just kind of making a grumpy face. You don't want to do that. So I think with people who are more skeptical, and correct me if I'm wrong, people that are more skeptical, that might be why they don't have as many experiences as someone who's more receptive and open and going, I'm here to talk to you. What do you need? Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And I think people that have sensitivity and greater sensitivity, they have more reason to want to communicate with those people, because if they're wanting help, they see that and look at that as, this person can help me.
Okay.
Whereas somebody who doesn't believe or doesn't have those abilities, they might look at it and go, well, you can't give me what I need.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, no thanks. I mean, no one wants to be rejected. I think that's kind of like, that's why I hear a lot from people is they don't want to ask people on dates because they don't want to be rejected. Same as a spirit communicating with you. Now, I don't want to communicate with you if you're going to shut me down.
Right.
And that's what I tell people is like, be open, be receptive, and how do you present yourself as open, but you prevent yourself from being attached? Because that's one thing people, I know they're scared, because like that was me in the beginning going, I don't want anything to follow me home or attach to me or any of this kind of stuff. How would you prevent that?
I'm going to let the two super sensitives answer that.
There we go. Come on, sensitive ladies.
Set boundaries.
Setting boundaries.
Setting boundaries. That's my biggest thing. When anybody says anything, I'm like, you need to set those boundaries, right? Like you have to, just like people do in our lives, they will only do what you allow them to do. Like, so, hey, I will talk to you, but, I know you're here and I'll speak to you and I'll help you if I can. But, you are not to touch me. You do not have permission to, get in my head. You don't have permission to follow me home.
Right.
It's really all about setting boundaries.
Absolutely.
You got to protect your own space.
There you go.
I set my intention and it pretty much stays with me. I don't, sometimes it's reactionary, I guess it's the right word. Other times it's just something I kind of do automatically. I'm not even sure how I do it. I've worked on it. It's almost like a subconscious thing that's just part of me now. You so that they know that you're open, but some things that's not cool, and you're not going to get that far with us. So please don't try.
Right.
So, you know, everybody, I think, maybe has a slightly different way they work on. Like some people surround themselves with white light. I guess
Right.
it's just whatever works for you. But I guess we all have our own boundaries, our own way with spirits. But that's what I do. I go into
That
it
makes sense.
with the mindset. This is who I am. This is what's not going to happen. And I don't even consciously think about it anymore. It's there for me.
It's just there.
Yeah.
And having said that, you know, demonics don't respect boundaries.
Right.
But it's still good to put that out there.
Definitely.
Because then you're letting them know they don't have invitation.
Exactly.
Which is an extremely important thing in those cases.
right.
So either way, it's good to have them regardless of what you're dealing
for
with.
sure. I think it with living and non-living, boundaries are good.
If a spirit's coming up and touching you and you're saying, don't touch my knee, I don't want you to do that, and they
Right.
back off, you know that's a spirit. A
I've tried to
demonic's
say,
going to
"Give me a
do
high
it either
five."
way.
Be like, high five me, and they never do. So I just give up. Like I've tried when we've been investigating. I'm like, yeah,
You know, and I might
Leave me
add
hanging.
that just because you've got strong boundaries doesn't mean that something else can't happen, which is where your team's invaluable. Because you need people around you that you can trust, that are observant, and they'll be like, ooh, something's not right there. Because you can go in confident, and most of the time it'll work, but it's not foolproof. Nothing in life is foolproof. So you got to have your team in case somebody needs to help you out with something.
Oh, for sure. I
But-
mean, that teamwork's got to be the most important
So
thing.
you go in alert and you have to be observant, but I never like lead with fear or anger.
Right.
That's
Right.
something, because I think that's also going to attract more unhappy spirits, and I'll help them,
True.
but I don't, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm trying to help them. I'm not.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, definitely. Because I think, like you said, setting your intention is smart. So I think, like you said, people have different rituals. Do you find it's better to say it out loud, or do you just kind of think it?
Depends on the person.
Yeah.
I've got to the point where it's set there. But
Okay.
in the beginning, you could even say it out loud if it whatever helps you get there. And it could even evolve over time. I know mine kind of did, and I'm sure Michelle's did.
Very
It's
cool.
kind of one of those things where, you know, even if you don't believe it, if you say it enough, eventually you will believe it. So you keep setting those boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you do not have permission, even though, you know, you're scared, you know, and you don't feel like you got the, you know, it behind it. But like if you keep doing it enough, keep saying it enough, then
Yes.
you will believe it. And
Flex
like
that
I said,
muscle.
my
Words are
other
powerful.
interviews,
Fake it till you make it.
There you
Right.
go.
Something I
you know,
tell
because
clients who are scared a lot.
There we go.
You give power to what you believe in. So, you know, and if you do something enough, then you're going to be more confident and more, you know,
Very much.
stronger and be better at setting them boundaries.
Oh, I believe it. I think mentally walking in, setting in those boundaries, and even announcing them out loud, because words are powerful. I mean, even if, you know, you're not religious, that, you know, a lot of the religions from the background, they come from speaking it, and then it happens. So I think that if you speak something, even if you're setting intentions, like I want to be a millionaire one day, you keep speaking it, and I want to do this, and manifesting to make things happen in your life. I'm a very firm believer in that. You know, speak it, and like you said, fake it till you make it.
Mhm.
So my next question is pretty important for people that's going to be listening. When you have an attachment, you've got something, you've brought it home, and you feel like, whether it's Grandma Fred or Uncle Bob, let's say that you're uncomfortable with it. What is your next step if you're uncomfortable with the attachment?
So, you know, being able to figure out firstly, and this is always something that I have to kind of help and screen people with and so forth, because unfortunately mental illness is a thing in our society, and I
For
want to
sure.
put that out there. You know, sometimes things are mistaken.
Right.
You know, a person may take in an object and for whatever reason, maybe just the energy of the fabric of the chair or whatever it may be
Right.
causes anxiety or something.
Really?
And they can, you know, misconstrue that. So
Okay.
so it's always important, you know, to weed out any possible rational cause for
Definitely.
everything that's happened. Sometimes people get a feeling off an object, bring it home, and then, you know, their keys go missing, and it's like, oh no, there's something attached to it. It's a ghost. Is
Instantly.
it?
You're
Or
like-
did your husband just pick up the keys and put them down somewhere else?
Or in the
And-
couch cushion.
Uh,
Or,
right. You know, so there's a
More often than not, there's a logical
Right.
reason for
Right.
things to happen. You
Oh
know.
yeah, I agree. Start with the logical. That's
Yep,
what I've always loved
always.
about
Yep,
you guys.
start there
You don't
and
just
then-
jump to it. You always go,
Right.
"What's the logical first?"
Yeah.
And it, like you said, you mentioned this before, and y'all have talked about it in previous interviews about checking for mental illness. Because, for example, if somebody had, let's say, a brain tumor and it was on the auditory nerve or something similar, and they're hearing a voice, it may not be something spiritual or otherworldly.
Yeah,
it
but
might be
it's real
something.
to them, but
Right. It
they
could be
believe they're
something
hearing something.
physical or something from that, or with traumas. I know you
Right.
guys have probably come across that a lot
Yeah.
of times with traumas, that objects can be triggering with traumas at
Yeah.
times. Smells. That's another big one I've seen, that an object, if you smell it, and let's say, you had a trauma that had to do with an uncle or somebody, and then you smell that and it brings back
Right.
that trauma.
Right.
So I know that could probably be something triggering as well.
Absolutely.
So once let's say you guys step in, like what is the next step, without giving away all the trade secrets, of course, because we don't want everybody out there going, "Oh, no, I'll go home and try that." I always say consult the professionals. I always refer you guys because you are the best that I know. Absolutely. But what can they do in the meantime if they are uncomfortable with the attachment until you guys get there? Besides the setting boundaries, we've got that. What can they do to make sure that, they're safe? They feel more comfortable.
I always talk to them at length first, because there's a certain series of questions that I ask to help me figure out what I think is going on. And
So screening criteria.
yeah, not to pat myself on the back, it's just experience. But at this point, I think these guys would agree with me that I'm pretty good at having a pretty good idea what we're walking into these days before we ever get in the door.
Right.
And
you have years of experience too.
Right. And years of experience talking to people. So
Mhm.
you start to learn how people react to different things, and it helps you kind of figure out what might be going on in a situation. So, obviously if I think that it's more of a conduit situation versus a spirit attachment to an item, I'm going to handle those two things entirely differently from the get-go before we even start working a case.
Right.
And then there are cases too, which we haven't really talked about much yet, where the attachment might not be to an item, but maybe the person's out walking around and they go on a ghost tour.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the ghost sees them and they remind them of their long lost sister, so they follow them home.
Oh my goodness.
Those kind of things happen too. Or people that are gifted, they'll see them and follow them home because they're like, oh, this person can help me, so I'm just gonna ride in the back seat with them and see when I can get this help.
Right.
So that happens too.
So that's how they decide. So that's an interesting point right there of why they would decide to attach to a person, is it reminds them of someone. That's really interesting.
Or
That
they
kind of
have
makes me
cases
sad though, thinking about, that's sad.
Or they feel a connection with a person.
Right.
For whatever reason. How you connect with certain people.
Right.
On a certain level.
Oh, for
I think
sure.
they sense that too. So
that's one thing that most of the ghost tours I've gone on is they talk about setting your intention, setting the boundaries, and that if you don't, that a lot of times something can follow you home. Because the first time that I went to Old Town Spring, the ghost walk, now I was like, nothing's gonna follow me. And sure enough, it was. You can see pictures that we took. You can see, and I know orbs are controversial, but it's one of those that it was nothing else because we took multiple pictures. And I always say too, take multiple pictures if you're ever documenting stuff for people who are amateurs, to make sure that there's that same thing is not there before or after if you're looking for anomalies. Because this was a bright orb light that was different, not like dust. It was not in the before picture or after, but it was right as if it was following me.
I've got something like that. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go right ahead.
It's when I first came to Texas, we went to visit Ashton Villa in Galveston.
Ooh.
And my friend and I were taking pictures. It's just a regular travel disposable camera. That's what they're called. And we kind of felt like Miss Betty was with us. And so we'd take pictures of each other, and there was always this certain orb.
Ooh.
And we would leave and go to different places and take pictures, and that same orb would still be right on one of our shoulders
On the same spot.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
And or area, not identical. And that happened throughout our trip to Galveston. Now, this has only happened to us once, but
Galveston is massively
Yeah.
haunted, so that's not
Yeah.
surprising.
and so that or single orb was with us in all our pictures, and I really felt like she followed us home. But this is important too. Just because they follow you home doesn't mean they're going to stay home.
Okay.
Mm.
I would say
that makes sense.
90% of the time they go back to their home.
Yeah.
They're curious about you, so they follow you home and they check it out and they check you out and they're like, okay, and they go back, and that's probably the last you'll see of them.
Right.
So
Because I've had that. We've had things that the first time we came back from that, the Old Town Spring Ghost Walk, is that we had, I didn't, like I said, I put sage on thinking, oh, okay, that's going to save me. The magic sage. But at the same time, I'm not setting my intentions or boundaries. So this was, I think, before we even started the show,
Right.
this is part of what got me interested, because y'all seen the Old Town Spring, how haunted it is.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, suddenly I wake up in the middle of the night and there's like a dark object, like almost shapeless, but like dust. And I was like, oh no, hell no, hell no. And I was like, go home. And then it just disappeared. But then I kept sensing, like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. Like you said, I kept sensing, like, I was having anxiety. I was feeling depressed. I was like, what is going on? Like, is something wrong with me? And then it kept appearing. And first thing I go is to 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗋. I'm like, I have a tumor. I'm like, I just know it. And it's like, nope. Eventually, long story short is I was able to talk to you at one point and told you about how I got rid of that. And that was me just dabbling and doing different things and trying different things, and it was gone, never been back. But now it's like nothing generally comes home with me. But that's one of those things that, like you said, that's powerful. Objects are powerful.
Right.
So did you guys have any more questions about attachments that you ever get from clients? Have anybody come across anything that they'd like to know?
Just for us, I think, whether it's an attachment to an object by a spirit, whether it's a conduit attachment with a demonic, or whether it's an attachment spirit to person, all three of those things we handle very, very differently. So,
Cool.
once I determine by talking to the person what I think it is we're dealing with,
Right.
then how we proceed from there varies greatly depending on which one of those things I think we're dealing with.
For sure.
Obviously, if it's a demonic conduit situation, that's a case we're going to take. We're going to have to investigate that and go through our regular process for a demonic case.
Right.
If it's something with a spirit attached to an object, those are typically the easiest of the three.
Yeah.
And that's something where, typically we can go and do a light investigation, talk to that spirit, find out what the issue is, why they're staying with that object instead of, crossing over, and help them work through that issue.
Right.
And that can be a very quick turnaround, if we're dealing with a single spirit in a case like that. We actually had one of those that Lynette and I consulted on very recently.
Oh, very cool.
And then if it is an actual attachment to a person, I know some teams do work those cases. We do not. If it is a case where we think that's possibly happening, we have a very good friend who's a Taoist and Buddhist priest
Oh, very cool.
that I refer all of those cases to. Reason being, we're, paranormal investigators. We go in to investigate a space. When you're dealing with a spirit attachment on a person, you're not investigating a space, you're investigating a person.
Right.
From a scientific standpoint, that's much, much more difficult to isolate exactly what's going on.
Exactly.
The priest friend of ours that I mentioned, he has certain therapies, PLR techniques and trance therapies that he can put a person in and help talk to that spirit directly through that person, if that is the
Right.
issue, and work through that.
Can we give him a shout out or no? Can we? Will he let us
I'm
drop
sure
his name?
he wouldn't mind.
Right, because
So-
I've personally met with him. He is incredible. Like, definitely, that's why I say consult an expert on any of these, especially if there's any questions. I tell them to to call you guys, I say, reasonable hours. Please don't call you at 2 a.m.
Right.
It's like maybe send a message and you'll get back to them at a normal hour. But definitely, I know you guys are so experienced. And I'm just so grateful to have you guys here and with the journey and with Ghost Hunting Beauties. And like I said, we're educating people. We're experiencing things. We're seeing new stuff. Hopefully, you're starting to experience some different stuff. And tell us what's ahead for SPI. You've got cases coming up. You've got new adventures coming up. What can people look forward to seeing on your channels?
We always have cases coming up, that's for sure.
Right.
We are actually in the midst of making some changes right now. Because we have become a specialty team.
Yes.
Over time. We've been kind of inundated for the last couple of years. Very much inundated. Literally, double cases on a weekend, and then the next weekend we're out of town, and the next weekend we're, across the state. And it, we love it, but it does get to be a bit much. We all have day jobs, we all have families and other things we have to do too. And
animals.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel that we can't give people the individual attention with those horrible demonic cases and things that they might need, or we have to schedule them further out than we want to, just because we have so many on the board. So while we do still want to help everybody on lighter cases, we'll probably be doing a lot more consulting, and maybe giving referrals for other people who can also help with those kind of cases.
Right, you guys are busy,
and we're gonna be lending ourselves more to the extreme and to our clients that have inhuman things and demonic things and things like that malevolent extreme, because those are the people that we feel that we can help the most, that maybe not everybody else can. Right. And we want to make sure that those people are getting the help and the urgent attention that they need.
Right. So how can somebody reach out to you guys? Where can everybody find you guys?
So we're on we're not on Threads yet. I plan to get us on that, but we're on pretty much every other social media platform there is. We're on Facebook daily. The others I don't get to quite as often. We're on Google, so that's always a great way. Right. But best and quickest to get to us is just give us a call, 281-825-8618. Sorry, I don't call myself.
No one calls herself.
But so just give us a call. I pretty much answer anytime. If I'm not available, I will in very short order text. Yes. And let the person know, I'm with a client or I'm at my day job, but I will get back to you just as soon as I can. So always very important, leave a message if we don't answer, or text us. We just need to know your name and the area that the person is in, so that when we call, we have some basis for, is this going to be a long distance case? Is this going to be a local case? And and we're better equipped to help them from the get-go that way.
Absolutely. And yes, they do travel, everybody. They do travel. And it's like, please make it worth their while, because they are experts in what they do, and they are definitely worth your time, because they have seen, I've just seen the reviews and people even reaching out to Ghost Hunting Beauties and going, look, they have helped us. They have saved our lives. I mean, people cannot stop speaking highly of you guys, and just wait till we get the show starts taking off even more and more and more. It's going to be, I don't think you guys are going to sleep every weekend. But you're helping people. I'm glad you're still at least, taking the time to consult and do that. And I appreciate you guys coming out for the show. And like I said, it's only going to grow bigger and better. And we're just going to keep helping people and keep opening up the world of the paranormal for people to see the real deal. And it's not always glamorous, but it can be. And some of us
make it glamorous.
Sometimes. Well, thank you, ladies, for being on the show, and look forward to next time. And like I said, keep those questions coming in on YouTube, Spotify, and all of our channels, and tell us what we need to talk about next time. Or if you have questions for these ladies, reach out to them. They are there for the questions. Thanks, everybody. Join us next time.